This is WKDU 91.7 FM, Drexel University's award-winning, student-run, free-format, commercial-free radio. Good morning and welcome to 1.6 degrees centigrade, rising, and your critical role in climate change on all matters impacted by climate change. I'm your author and host, Diane Davis. Well, this morning we're going to be talking to Dr. Patrick Gurian, who is a teaching and research professor here at Drexel University's Civil, Architectural, and Environmental Engineering program, and with Will Char, who recently graduated from Drexel University's Civil, Architectural, and Environmental Engineering program last June. For those who are in our listening audience, we're going to be talking to Will Char and Dr. Gurian about a special report that was generated by Will and 4 of his senior classmates who graduated last June that is both timely and on point with carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gas emissions that are known to be causally related to many upper respiratory diseases, allergies, and global warming and climate change. Welcome, Dr. Gurian and Will Char, and thank you for everyone in our listening audience for joining us here at Drexel University's WKDU studio. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Dr. Gurian, what is your position here at Drexel University, and what role have you fulfilled in working with Will and his co-classmates during their senior year project last year?
So I'm an associate professor here at Drexel in the Department of Civil, Architectural, and Environmental Engineering. And my role in this was as faculty advisor for their senior design project. So this was part of my responsibilities as an educator. So I certainly care a lot about the environment and care about this topic, but in this particular project, I was wearing my educator hat. So the goal was to use this as an opportunity to build professional skills. This is part of our curriculum in our department. Every student forms a group and takes part in a faculty mentored design project. And the focus on an environmental theme is a theme that's engaging and interesting and something that I think will, build engagement by the students. So as much as I care about the results and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, my role in this is certainly to have the hat of the educator on and be thinking about how do we build skills in our students so that they're ready for their professional careers as they undertake this activity.
And Will, please tell us, what were the precipitating factors in your decision to devote your senior project to the reduction of greenhouse gases and its consequential adverse effects of climate change?
So yeah, I really kind of wanted to break the mold with this project and what I was doing. A lot of students, especially in my department, they have projects along the lines of designing a building or HVAC system, or redesigning some sort of parking garage or parking lot, a lot of like civil construction type work. Year after year, these projects come up and they're kind of like presented and then discarded. And so I was really hoping to have a project that could have a lasting impact and something that we could present to educators and upper faculty members and really show them like, look, we are strongly interested in this topic and we think that it can make a huge difference, and we really hope that you listen to us. And so I had a few ideas floating around. Some different faculty members, they posed ideas as well on online, and we checked them out, and I saw Dr. Gurian's posting and approached my friends with it as well, and we're all kind of like-minded and we're interested in climate change. The majority of us were environmental engineers, so a lot of our schoolwork dealt with a lot of climate change mitigation and different techniques that they're using nowadays for that. So we really took a liking to this project and thought that we could, see some cool results and make a difference, and we all kind of jumped on board.
So could you expand a little and tell us how you went about constructing your senior project that would reflect greenhouse gas emissions reductions, the reductions?
Okay, so basically the reductions on campus and how we went about. the project in general.
Yes, tell us
Okay.
about your project in general and your construction points, how you wrote your outline and presented it.
So, of course, we met with Dr. Gurian and one of our other professors a lot and really brainstormed, had a lot of ideas and whatnot. But it really came down to, trying to figure out, we asked, like, what are the main sources of greenhouse gas emissions on Drexel's campus? And so you started with that, and we, after reading some reports, Pannoni put up a great report a few years back that we used a lot of their information for. And we broke it into different sectors based on that report and some utility bills that the facilities department was very generous in giving us. And we broke it into 4 different sectors. The first of which was electricity generation. The second was transportation. The third was water, and the fourth was what was it? I'm sorry. So the first was
HVAC?
no. So it was electricity generation, building retrofits, transportation, and water management practices.
Dr. Gurian, please tell us about the history of greenhouse gas emissions reduction planning in Philadelphia. I understand you have quite a background in understanding the issues.
Well, back in 2014, we went to talk to the Mayor's Office of Sustainability here in Philadelphia, and they had done a lot of planning and nearer term goal setting, but they wanted to take a look at the big picture, look at the horizon out to 2050 and say, if we're going to stabilize the climate system, we need cuts of 80% in the developed countries like the United States. And so they wanted a document that would say, is that even feasible? Would that involve us all shivering in the dark? And so we were able to go to Drexel's Institute for Energy and the Environment and get a grant for $50,000 to study that question. And we came back and we said it wouldn't be easy, wouldn't necessarily be cheap, but it's doable and it does not involve shivering in the dark. It involves things like energy efficiency upgrades in buildings like we've been talking about, better lighting systems, better insulation. It involves things like decarbonizing the electricity supply, looking at wind and solar, and probably, people have different feelings about nuclear, but probably some license renewals at the existing nuclear plants that we have. And then a lot of different choices about which direction we go in. So that was, again, I won't get too far into the details of that, but we concluded it was feasible to get those kinds of reductions, even as there would be some expense involved, certainly. And so that project was wonderful. And like all projects do, the money ran out. And so we have a report. You can read the report. It's online. But I wanted to keep things going. And so that was where I put this topic up for our senior design students and said, let's see if we can do the next generation of planning, but make it local. Now we've had Drexel tell Philadelphia that, yes, we can do this, but can Drexel do it itself? And of course, Drexel at this point has actually already met 80 by 50 goals through our purchase of renewable electricity. But my feeling is that you can always strive to do better. And so that our present accomplishments should not stay in the way of trying to plan for even further reductions. So that brings us to the present.
Well, this is very exciting. Will, I understand that there was a recent study undertaken by Drexel University that involved the president, the trustees, and some presidents of other universities about reducing the carbon dioxide load in especially at Drexel here at the main campus here at U City. Can you tell us a little bit about this and the information? I think you used the information from this report to formulate some of your points in your outline for your senior design project. You found that helpful?
So in 2011, Drexel University, as part of the American College and University President's Climate Commitment, made the commitment to achieve an 80% reduction in its carbon footprint by 2015. The university was able to meet that in 2011 through the purchase of renewable electricity. Part of that process, though, was to do a baseline emissions report, which was done by the firm Pannoni Incorporated. So that report then became available and is a really vital source of information as far as how much we were emitting in 2011, and it provides a baseline as students seek to study how we might further achieve reduction.
So that your report, your senior design project, is actually reducing even further what was achieved in 2011. Do I understand correctly?
Yes. So as Dr. Gurian said, the 2011 report gave us a baseline to work from. And we updated a few aspects of their greenhouse gas inventory that they took to take into account a couple new buildings Drexel had built. We basically just took the utilities bill, the electric utility bill from fiscal year 2015, and updated those usage and got a greenhouse gas emissions from that, added that to the baseline. But yes, that report was very integral in our report and how we went about investigating different reductions on campus.
So this will be a significant contribution to the reduction of a further reduction beyond the 2011. Well, this is really good news, not only for Drexel, but for the general U City environment, the atmosphere. When you and your classmates evaluated the various point sources, did you find any one particular point source to be the greatest CO2 emitter as a point source?
So as I had mentioned earlier, we did break it down into 4 different sections. That was building efficiency, electricity production, transportation, and water management. And we all took kind of a different chunk of that pie and did research on our own. But we did find that the biggest point source, as you said, would be inefficiencies in buildings. So the electricity usage is also the gas and steam usage of some of these older buildings on campus. Just the infrastructure isn't up to date, as you might say, and that's where a lot of the energy wasting occurs, is in buildings.
Just having practiced in the field, I know that many of the buildings that were built before the BOCA code that we assumed as energy law here in the United States in 1979, 1980, many of those buildings do emit a lot of CO2, but because they are not insulated, they are very, very difficult to manage as far as bringing the BTUs down and the emissions. The older buildings are quite a challenge for the owners, and I know every university campus has them. This is not just a Drexel University thing. This is throughout the United States, and it's a challenge to try to mitigate some of the emissions because they are more intensive on their BTU usage. Can you give us some general idea about your summary conclusions in your report that you were able to expand upon, making a greater contribution to the 2011 report?
Yeah, sure. Well, so the way we did it, I don't remember the term exactly of the chart. It was we basically put all of our alternatives. We graphed all of our alternatives and based on the cost per CO2 emitted, how much each alternative would cost based on the cost per CO2 emitted, per ton of CO2 emitted, excuse me. And so the water management practices, they were incredibly positive in that they saved the university money by constructing these. Every other alternative, though, would cost the university money.
Sure,
Um,
to rehab and.
right. A handful of those were still below like what you. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this with the social cost of carbon.
The SCC.
Right. So the majority, well, I'd say I don't know, 60% of our alternatives were they cost below the social cost of carbon. So they were still ideal. And then once you kind of balanced out the water management alternatives with the other practices that were, they still cost money, but were below that social cost. We combined it until we reached basically an equilibrium where it was like a no net present cost for the university to institute these alternatives. Right, and with that kind of no net cost, we were able to reduce 8% of emissions.
The savings to the university would, of course, give the university more money to build brand new buildings.
And not to mention these like technologies would, they could be used for recruitment. They could be used for research on campus. If we implemented some new sustainable technologies, I think that's a big plus in regardless from cost savings for the university as an educational standpoint, I'd say.
Well, universities are always in need of more laboratory space, updated laboratory space, updated laboratory equipment, so that money could be better used for education purposes of the students. Your conclusions incorporated the use of the water management.
Yes.
Big time.
Yes, they did. Our recommendations, we recommended like a constructive wetland be constructed. There's some space down south of Bertram Gardens where we did some research and thought Drexel could build this constructive wetland that could take a equivalent load of Drexel's waste and treat it instead of it being sent to the wastewater treatment plant. And yes, that was included in our recommendation, as well as a few other techniques which got us to that 8%. We also included, though, that I guess it's okay to mention that we recommended that they do further research in building energy conservation and renovations.
I'm curious now, your senior project report, was this passed on to President Fry and the trustees?
So again, it's a long road, I think, from student work to implementation, and I see my role as basically on the educational side of things. So these reports don't necessarily go straight into the upper administration's inboxes. We have had some student interest in talking about them, and I think you'll have some subsequent guests who've kind of picked up on what Will and his colleagues have started. I think it's sometimes fine if there isn't a direct road. A lot of these ideas have to be vetted, have to go through a process. The university, of course, is not going to immediately go from student work. But I think what their value is in kind of broadening our minds. Things that we wouldn't think of paying a professional consultant to look at, we can have our own students look at as part of their educational process. So that's where I see the value is. Not that we're on a straight line to the president's office, but that we're able to bounce ideas around, have different student groups look at them and see which ones they really want to champion. And I don't see my role as being, picking and choosing. My role is to coach the students, and then what they want to take forward to the administration, they're welcome to, and hopefully they've learned something in the process.
Well, Will, tell me, all of this experience that you've had, along with your four classmates who you worked very hard with to prepare this report, doing a lot of in-field data collection and your graphics and everything for your critical thinking. Can you tell us how this has helped you now in your current job? You're now working in the field as an environmental engineer?
Well, I'm actually still looking for a job, so I haven't been able to use it yet. But it's a great talking point when I do speak with potential employers about being hired and this work that I've done in the renewable field. I know one of my classmates is working for an environmental firm, doing a lot of site remediation type work, and so a lot of stuff that we did for the water management practice, we had to do some site research and some site evaluation for because it was a brownfield that we were interested in building this constructed wetland in.
Yeah, lots of brownfields around.
So yeah, she definitely is using a lot of this for in her professional work now. So.
As a background, the in situ data gathering it must help you a lot. I hope you put that on your resume.
Oh, without a doubt, that's skills that I think any engineer would
Sure.
definitely needs and is using in professional practice. So.
Dr. Gurian, would you like to add anything to the conversation or let our audience know anything, any other points of interest?
Just say that it's been a real pleasure to have this opportunity to work with students on these problems, and I hope that the audience will think about what our next steps are. I think that a lot of what we've been talking about is maybe less controversial. Saving energy in buildings is not a controversial thing. But there are also some big decisions that we're going to have to make about electricity supply and what that mix is going to look like and how much nuclear is in there and how much solar. And I just hope that people will think carefully about that because it's certainly a big decision we have coming up for our society.
Yeah, it's going to be an issue for the whole electorate as we go forward because we don't want the climate change to get any worse than what it is. Right now it's pretty unpredictable as we're going forward. This is going to be another El Niño year, and it's going to be wet here in the north and probably very warm. 2017 may be the warmest year on record so far. Will, would you like to add anything to our discussion? Would you like to let the audience know anything about your experience, your project, anything in general or specific to greenhouse gas emissions?
Not specifically. It was a great experience though. As an environmental engineer, as I said, we're very involved in a lot of either working to solve or remediate problems that have come about through climate change. So it was nice to kind of be on like the forefront of, making changes to prevent damages from climate change now. So yeah, it was a real great experience, and we worked with great faculty, and everyone that we worked with was very nice.
I
and
can
helpful.
see that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
It's been a great, sounds like a one-of-a-kind experience that you can take with you into your career. Drexel University is doing a great job with preparing young professionals for their professional careers. It's been a pleasure to speak with you, Dr. Gurian. It's been a pleasure to meet you and speak with you, Will. And for our listening audience, we're going to be talking to Dr. Gurian and two additional students who have picked up on Will's project, and they've taken this one step further. And we're going to be talking to them in our next segment. So everybody in the listening audience, I hope you'll tune in for that segment and learn even more about how we can mitigate greenhouse gases and and try to arrest the climate change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having us.